My name is Jay Kraft, and today we are here for a very special interview. We have a man who needs very little introduction after spending a decade working with eBay and returning back just recently to take on the position of Senior Vice President and General Manager for eBay's North American market. Today we are joined by Jordan Sweetnam. How are you doing today, buddy?
Oh, I'm great. It's awesome to be here. Thank you very much.
I'm absolutely thrilled to have you, to be completely honest. As I was telling you before we even got started, it's a rare and wonderful opportunity for you to be able to take a moment and answer some of the questions that a lot of sellers have been having, and even to touch base on some of the stuff that's been in the news as of recent. But before we even get going into that, I wanted to get a little bit of a better understanding of you. I was reading up about you, and I see that you had done work historically with eBay Canada before coming across to here. Is that what brought you into the States?
Yeah, it is. I joined eBay back in 2004. It had survived the dot-com bubble, and a buddy of mine said, "Hey, you need to join eBay. Our office can be 50 people by the end of the year." And sometimes timing in life isn't perfect, and so I joined eBay. And 6 months later, our share price was cut in half, and everybody had left the office because that was the end of the original free growth at eBay. But what a fantastic time to learn! And so I was up in Canada for a couple of years. I can talk cross-border trade and customs issues with anybody that has those. And then eBay moved me down to the US in 2007, and I've had a pretty awesome ride with the company since then.
Very cool, very cool. I noticed that you had gotten a degree in Vancouver. Is that where you originally hail from?
So I'm from Canada. I grew up in sort of above New York, so Ottawa, Toronto area. And then I went to school out west of Vancouver, and ended up back in Toronto working for eBay before I got moved down. So for the Canadian sellers on the board, it's they're always nice to say, like, "Hey, can I get a logo but with the .ca? Hey, how come we don't have like all the same shipping supplies up there?" So at least there's always a friend down here in San Jose when they need some help.
Somebody looking up and looking out for them, pretty much, right?
Exactly.
Fantastic. Yeah. Well, I think it goes without saying, there's a very particular reason why we've come together today. Obviously, we have to talk about some important things, and one of the things is there's some recent news going on, and I'll just kind of toss it out to you if you'd like to talk with us about what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, in a year of things that have been totally unexpected, the news last week definitely sits at the top of that for me personally and for everybody at eBay. It was shocking to sort of hear the indictment and the news about the eBay employees or former employees, who harassed the blogger and her husband. Pretty shocking. Disappointing, embarrassing, a little bit, all candor, like anger-inducing for me. I think at the most, foundational level, like the fact base, law enforcement approached us last summer, let us know that they'd sort of, had this brought to their attention. We both ran investigations in parallel. We terminated employment of a number of people. Obviously, the burden for us to get confidence that someone doesn't fit our cultural values is not the same as it is for law enforcement to, file federal charges. And so their investigation wrapped up last week, which is what led to the indictment on June 15th. It was a little bit, not many people at eBay even knew this was going on, just given the confidential nature and the request from law enforcement to stay quiet. So when many of your listeners and viewers saw this for the first time last Monday, that was the truth for the vast majority of eBay employees. And so I kind of mentioned those emotions earlier, but everybody kind of went through the shock, sadness, disappointment. I say embarrassment because, whether you're a top seller, a hobbyist, or an employee, I haven't talked to anybody yet who didn't have to field text, emails, phone calls from friends, neighbors, business partners like, "Whoa, like you sell on eBay? Like, is that true? Is that really who they are?" And it's just tough. And for people who, like yourself, who have such a long-standing tie to the brand, that isn't what people want to be talking about. Like I had to explain to my kids, like, why did eBay employees get arrested? And, nobody wants to have that conversation. And so I just thank you. And the Canadian in me feels the need to apologize to all of our sellers. Just, sorry. It just sucks, and it's embarrassing, and it's supremely distracting from what all the eBay employees showing up would like to be doing and what all of our sellers would rather us be dealing with on a day-to-day basis.
And I'll be honest with you, I saw your Facebook post, and it really, I think hit the mark for a lot of people who had those concerns and wanted to hear an outbound statement from Facebook, or excuse me, a statement from eBay through Facebook. And I noticed a lot of support from the community. A lot of people were saying, like, we understand this isn't a direct reflection of eBay. This is a couple of bad apples that, maybe went a little bit rogue. But the question that a lot of people had left that they wanted answered was, I guess, looking forward from June 15th. What is put in place to not only protect content creators, bloggers, vloggers, even sellers as a whole from any type of repeat of something like this happening again?
Yeah, I'll actually touch on one little thing you said in your question first. It's just a thank you. I was expecting to get nothing but a whole bunch of exceptionally upset and frustrated customers, and every one of those would have been justified. But in and amongst that, there were a lot of people who said, wow, we're really sorry this happened to you guys. Anything we can do to help? How are your employees? And talk about the most humbling and undeserving feeling I've had ever in a job, which is like, I can't believe our sellers, our customers are worried about us. I mean, that was just incredibly touching. So just thank you for everybody who expressed that sentiment by email and Facebook. And then to answer your question, talk about disappointing. The reason I came back to eBay is I love the connection with sellers, like the people I visited, their warehouses, their basements, their home offices, however you want to call them. Like that's the magic of eBay, all these different business models. And 9 times out of 10, I do not stand there and get a giant, handshake with a big smile on the face and say, wow, everything at eBay is perfect. It's, hey, we love eBay, but here are the things you need to fix. Unlike other marketplaces out there, we're fundamentally not competitive, and that is better and worse. I think sometimes eBay needs to be a little bit more like competitive in how we want to, push ourselves. But that feedback is so important. Even as like when I've been a junior product manager at eBay, issues that like we spent weeks trying to find in the data. You talk to the one right customer, and like that's the unlock, and you found the solution. And so to hear from our community members that they either did not already feel comfortable speaking their voice, or this news now made them feel uncomfortable speaking their voice. It's a huge detrimental side effect of what came out of last week, because it is the voice of the community that helps make eBay better. It helps create the right products. And so I know we have a lot to prove in terms of like giving people confidence they can trust us again. But as I said in Facebook, I'll reiterate here, people should definitely feel comfortable to, let us know when we're not getting it right, because that is how we get better.
Most definitely. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And when you're talking about that seller connection, the reason why you came back to eBay, one of the things that I feel was really valuable for a lot of sellers to be able to connect with people like yourself, because as a company like eBay scales, the larger it gets, the harder it is to hear, the day one eBayer and their frustrations. It's almost impossible to hear those. But with events like eBay Open, and it came as a shocker to a lot of people that eBay Open for this year was canned in lieu of some smaller regional events, which unfortunately, for the most part, got wiped out due to COVID-19. But do you mind giving us some clarity as far as why that event was scrapped for regional and what we could potentially expect in the future as far as a return of eBay Open?
Yeah, look, I will give you the totally unvarnished, honest answer. So I was the one who led the effort to bring back eBay Open in 2016. I desperately missed eBay Live. I thought it was such a fantastic opportunity for our community to come together. And so I got as far as getting the team in place, getting the budget approved. And I told the leadership team at the time, I said, you cannot do it if you're going to do it for 1 year. If you're going to do this, you have to agree to fund it for multiple years. And so I feel like Hal and the team who was here when I left, they held up their commitment and they ran this event for multiple years while I was gone. And that was amazing. Being totally candid, what I came back to, though, I think somewhere along the lines, eBay Open lost the plot a little bit and started to become very expensive. Like eBay makes lots of money, but it's not really our money. It's our sellers who pay the fees. And so when I looked at the millions of dollars that it took to run eBay Open, I was a little bit uncomfortable around the number of people who were attending versus the amount it took to run it. And I wasn't convinced it was the best use of all of our seller fees to do that. So I asked my team, I'm like, look, let's pause this for a year and look if there's a different way for us to get out there and engage with sellers in person. We put together these plans to visit. I think my team had me visiting 34 states this year, which would have been like super cool. But and then obviously COVID happened, and so this whole thing got blown up. But I will tell you, as much as we haven't finished my learning agenda on the different local ideas I wanted to explore, I have been surprised on the amount of feedback on eBay Open, which is like, wow, we would love to have this come back. We missed the bigger community event. And so I think that's probably something I underestimated in the decision. And so when we look at next year, we'll have to figure out like what is the right balance on get everybody together with how do we go and visit sellers where they don't all have to get on an airplane to do that.
Yeah, and I'll be frank with you, with the location being Vegas, flying out wasn't terribly difficult. Most times the inbound flights are fairly cheap, and for a lot of us, it gave us an opportunity to actually go meet our boss. That's the way that I phrased it to a lot of people when I spoke about it. We actually got to go and shake hands and, come meet the business partner that we've been working with for some of us over 2 decades now, and it was just a very unique experience. And I think for a lot of us would feel that most of the glitz and glam and the food and bev, a lot of that can be dialed back, and rather than having an event that runs a $450 ticket, make it a $250 ticket, and tell
Yeah.
some people to stay home, and let's
Yeah.
really get to the knit and grit and have that nice community and that nice fun. And one of the other things too that I want to touch base on is we really got an opportunity to ask hard questions. We could go to somebody who was specialized in managed payments or categories or product development and say, hey, what is actually going on right now? And one of the concerns that we've heard from the community as of recent that a lot of people, have been asking me in regards to is return cases and disputes and forced returns, and especially as of recent with the whole COVID situation, we've seen people having to kind of come out of pocket for late deliveries and stuff like that. So I guess what I'm asking is, where are we at timeline wise for being able to get a more stable level of customer service, and can sellers at any point expect a concierge level of service without the eBay Open or without doing $1 million a year in volume?
Yeah. So you'll ask a lot of great things in there. I'll just start by sort of acknowledging the problem. It really frustrates me. When I left, eBay had I think 71 or 73 different return policies. It was very confusing for buyers. But when I came back, we had three. And so, like, just for context, Walmart has I think 21 return policies. Like, why? Because returning a TV is different than apparel, and it's different than food products. And Walmart doesn't have an amazing company. Obviously, had a lot of fun there, but like, it doesn't have a fraction of the diversity of products that eBay's over 1 billion, 1.5 billion listings represents. And so that we basically require sellers to have the same return policy on a new inbox TV as they would on a saddle or a first edition Spider-Man comic. It makes no sense. And my worry is that we've actually oversimplified things for the buyer. We've had sellers do things that actually their customers don't assign any value to. Because if you're buying the first edition Spider-Man, the retail standard is not a 30-day money-back guarantee. Like, nobody has that expectation. But by requiring that, we actually expose our marketplace to a bunch of problems in a best case scenario. And in a worst case scenario, people are actually just out there to take advantage of these policies. And so we definitely have to fix them. Like, if sellers feel that things have skewed like a little one-sided towards buyers, I would tell them they're probably not wrong. That's the assessment I've seen since I'm back. Before the lockdown happened, I was in Austin doing some side-by-sides with our CS agents, and it's kind of painful to hear sellers taking damaged items back on returns with no recourse. Like, we have retailers who sell on eBay, and they offer retail standard policies. We also have sellers who are like thrifting and things are final sale, and I'm not sure they should be forced to take the return. And so we've got to fix that. You asked timeline. I want to get more of it done this year than we're going to be able to do. The truth is COVID really just blew up a lot of our plans. In a small number of categories this fall, we will introduce some different flexibility around returns so we can learn our way in. But the majority of your listeners won't actually be able to hold me accountable to delivering on that ask until sometime next year.
And the thing is, eBay as a whole and the seller community, we have a lot of patience in us. We understand that one little change on the site, it's not just eBay North America. Sometimes these changes have to go across 40 different iterations of the site. And I feel that there is some frustration for sellers because historically we were told just use the collectibles category. Throw it in collectibles, it's a different set of return rules, and that's kind of gone to the wayside. We have perfect fit categories now. And with situations where, let's say you sell a gas cap for a 1950s Harley, and that gas cap works fine, but 3 weeks later it starts getting a little bit loose. It was sold as brand new, and finding that fine line between offering a brand new old stock product and then at a certain point feeling like we have to offer a warranty on it for a 30 or 60 or up to 90 days depending on the global climate. And I think that a good proportion of sellers, probably over 99% of sellers, we want to do the right thing. So in our efforts to try and stand by the customer, we'll accept a return. We'll take it back. We'll say, hey, we get it. It's not your fault. It's not my fault. It may be the customer's fault, but we'll take it back anyways because we'll list it back up and we'll sell it again. But we end up seeing things like defects and accelerated fees and a 5% premium within certain categories. And I think sellers want to do the right thing, but without feeling like we have to fight the consumer and tell them, no, we don't want your return back. We have to fight them to be able to protect our own business. So I do agree with you. Maybe a little bit more flexibility on these returns and categories.
Yeah, there's not a lot of room for sometimes things just go wrong and nobody's at fault. Like the way it's set up right now is, well, either the seller's done something wrong or the buyer has done something wrong. And having spent 3.5 years as a retailer, like sometimes TVs get broken and the buyer didn't put their thumb through it and the manufacturer didn't ship a broken TV. Like things just happen in supply chain, and it's not about intent. It's just things happen. And so then the question for me is, are our policies set up in a way where people can just do the right thing, recognizing that sometimes nobody's at fault? And I think right now the answer is no. And then frustrating that is, man, like the number of rocks in a box, and you can pick your category, whether it's watches, tech accessories. I saw one from a customer about aquarium equipment recently. Like rocks in a box needs to go away. Like it's 2020. I think we can find a solution to that. And one seller wrote me in sort of suggesting, hey, I videotape everything. Why don't you have us do that? And obviously don't want to ask sellers to start wearing body cams to ship stuff out and bring things back. But I think there's more we can do to better reflect our understanding of what do we know about the seller and their history on eBay? What do we know about the buyer and their history on eBay? Which way do we think this is believable? Are they both believable? And maybe it is just something happened in shipping. And I think we can, it's messy to weave for us to lean into anything that isn't absolute, like, okay, this is shipping information. But I think we kind of have to in terms of our role of facilitating the marketplace. So this is an area where we are going to learn our way in, and we'll need a lot of feedback from our customers to help us get it right.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you, I look forward to the direction that things can go, and I feel that the more that eBay gets hands-on and they're involved in every single step of the process. Some people love it, some people hate it, but the more that eBay is there to say, hey, these are the guidelines, this is what you need to do, it ultimately means that we may need more hands-on the back end. We may need eBay there to say, okay, we're going to cover the back end too, not just the initial sale. But I guess moving on from that, so some of the other stuff that the community has asked about, and in large part due to some of the other competitor action that we've seen, is we're curious, when will we see a significant refresh to the app-based experience, the PC-based experience? I even noticed when I registered for eBay Open 2019, one of the checkboxes regarding events or things that you might be interested in said a dedicated seller app, which is something we would love to see. Where are we timeline wise, like over the next 12 months? What can we look forward to?
Yeah, I mean, so consider I will share with you the things I would love to see. So don't like hold me accountable to Jordan said, and here are the dates.
We'll quote it and we'll put big subtitles at the bottom too.
So a dedicated seller app. Harry Temkin, who's on Facebook as much or more often than I am, sort of like answering seller questions. He really wants to do that. As I'm sure managed payments is a big focus for us this year, and so a large part of his team is on that. But I would be surprised if you and I were having this conversation 12 months from today if there wasn't a dedicated seller app out there to start to get people on there. You talked about sort of like just a design refresh. One of the other critical roles that was filled almost, I think, to the day that I came back was our new chief product officer. Pete Thompson. He is oh, he's awesome. Like it's fun. He like gets the customers. He's diving into the product and the UI, and he identified very early on that look, you know, we need a design refresh. For those of you, when you talk about 20-year customers, you know, back eBay's old school homepage, like yellow, there's still yellow pages on the website, and they're
Oh
not
yeah.
actually hard to find. And so, not only is it time to bring that consistency, if you talk to younger shoppers in Gen Z, like our site actually feels old, and not like old retro good, but old like I probably don't want to shop there because something is not quite right. And so this isn't even about like the functionality. It's actually just about like, hey, we need to sort of bring some of our UI, our design elements, how the app looks into a more you know, modern look and feel. On our iOS app, 2 weeks ago we launched dark mode.
Yeah, I noticed that, and I saw the
Like a
press release, and I'm like,
top
"That's
customer
cool."
request. Like it, and it's just it's these little things that just sort of let our customers know, hey, we're still investing, and these are the things. It's not about I need a dramatically new feature. It's just like make it nice and clean to use. And so, you know, our chief product officer has an entire work track this year on these fix the basics. Like it's not about things that are like we need to go and build this giant new $1 billion feature. It's hey, here's things we're just hearing from customers. It's like this is confusing, this is annoying, this looks old and tired, and just trying to clean all those up. And so he's been back effectively as long as I have. You should look to see a lot of exciting things from his team over the next year.
Yeah, and I spoke with him very briefly at Open, and I'll definitely reach out to him to get some more information moving forward. Very nice person, and I guess looking more towards the future as well. You know, I was talking with one of your assistants earlier. You know, there's a few things that are certain in life: taxes, death, seller updates. You know, they're just very consistent, and we got
Yeah.
fall around the corner, and that's one of the biggest things here on our productions. We tear down the seller updates, and we look at the terms of service updates. Can you give us any insight to that next update that's around the corner?
Sure. I think, you know, my official talking points, I'm supposed to tell you there's only two seller updates a year, so don't worry. You know, I will tell you in all candor, I'm trying to push us to be a little more flexible. And I don't want to introduce confusion or fear. I was actually a part of the team way back when Dinesh Lati was running Seller Experience that created the notion of seller updates. The sellers didn't have to deal with this constant chaos of every Friday there's a new thing they have to respond to. I do think as a company we could be a little bit quicker if we said, hey, certain updates only impact people who sell collectibles or people who sell apparel. We might be able to move some things around a little bit quicker. So, you know, in the future, you and I might have more conversations around more frequent changes. But the same seller shouldn't expect to see 6 changes per year. It might just sort of reflect us as we drive a more vertical strategy, timing things a bit differently. For this fall, I think one thing that probably won't be a surprise is you can expect more news around our progress on catalogs and making sure we're getting aspects and some more categories. Much of that was actually announced earlier in the year, but we actually delayed the requirements as part of just everybody focusing on COVID. I think for my organization, we will probably have some trying to make some of the changes we've done around our listing promotions a little more permanent in a couple categories where we've seen some interesting results. And then obviously payments, just a lot going on in that front. And so more updates there around, you know, what our timelines look like, how are we doing on the migration, which categories are coming up next for some of the areas like coins and bullion that have been sort of sitting on the sidelines for a while. So those will really be the key themes.
Fantastic, and that's great intel, and we definitely look forward to those updates and you know, coins, bullion, and the other handful of other categories that I know some managed payments sellers are waiting for to be able to utilize moving forward. And I know your time is very limited today. I want to hit you with one last one before we let you go for the day. Recently, with great approval from the community, you've started running more traditional advertising again. So we're talking TV, radio, and I have 2 questions for you. One, what type of impact has it really had on GMV? Because us as sellers, we can look at our numbers, we can look at our fellow sellers' numbers, but it's really difficult to get a broad scope of how the health of eBay as a whole is doing with these ad spend dollars. And then beyond that, we notice other brands are working directly with influencers and creators, and to increase brand engagement to what I consider the next generation of shoppers. The millennials and below that are really going to be the key spenders moving forward. Yeah, how is it going? How's GMV, and what's eBay doing to try and capture that audience?
Yeah, look, so on your first question, the TV spend is really funny because you don't have to go too far back in Facebook to see me telling customers like we're never going to do TV spend. The ROI isn't there. It doesn't make sense. And it became a bit of a joke internally because like people wouldn't even ask me because the answer is until we change our value prop, I don't want to spend money on TV. I want to fix the core customer issues. Well, in a year in which everything's changed, well, everything changed. And so what happened over the last 3 months, we went from, it took 10 years to go from 9% of US retail as e-com to 17. That was where we were in January. And the last 3 months, we went from 17% of retail being e-com to 33%. And so I'm sure we will give some of that up, but eBay is now playing in a much, much bigger field. Our diversified seller base that wasn't trying to, get flour and spaghetti and toilet paper through fulfillment centers, which is what, Amazon and Walmart did an amazing job, but that's a tough logistics problem to solve. Our seller base just totally rocked it over the last 3 months, and they were shipping everything all over the country and doing it quickly. And so that changed. Like I actually felt there was an opportunity for us to get out there and tell our story on TV and on more traditional channels. And if you've seen some of the ads, like it hasn't been about these are the things you can buy on eBay. It's here's who's powering eBay. It's the small businesses. It's Main Street. They're up and running. And when you shop on eBay, that's who you're supporting. Like it really is shopping local. Even if you're shopping my Main Street and I'm shopping yours, you're still supporting Main Street. And so I don't know how long we're going to keep running, TV, but we've definitely seen across the board our paid marketing efficiency go up just by virtue of how much demand has moved online and how the competitive dynamics and other advertisers have really changed their spend profile. To answer your second question, 100%. I only have to, go 6 feet over to my daughter and sort of see how she's on, TikTok and Instagram and see how other brands are out there speaking to the next generation of shoppers to know that there's a lot more we can be doing there. I can't share any details, but I spent 3 hours this morning with my marketing team. We're actually talking about some of those themes for some cool stuff we're going to do this fall. And I think we're going to learn a lot there. But as I kind of joke with my team, my 12-year-old daughter is more qualified to run some of the things we're doing than I am. And I think that's true for our broader customer base. Your viewership and the broader eBay customer base has a lot of insight and ideas on what we should be doing differently. And so as always, people should just feel free to reach out and let me know, ping me on Facebook, email me directly. I've dropped my email in everywhere. It's just jordan@ebay.com. So if people have ideas around things we should be doing differently, market opportunities we're missing, or things we can do to help them drive social traffic, they should let me know. I mean, last week, we announced our new, as part of Traffic Month, the EPN incentive. So for sellers who drive their own traffic to eBay, they can get 100% of their fees back if that results in a sale. And so we can drive social traffic, but honestly, our community is hundreds of thousands of members strong who can drive traffic as well. And so if people have ideas around things we can do to help us help amplify their efforts, that's really helpful as well.
I couldn't agree more. I definitely feel it's a full circle, win-win team effort the whole way through and through. Before I let you go, is there anything that you want to leave with the eBay community? Any last thoughts that you want to leave them with?
Just a thank you. The number of people I talked to who've been selling on eBay for 15 years, for 20 years, for 22 years. I know there's some 25-year-old, people out there as well. It's just so humbling to hear the stories of what eBay has allowed people to do. And I know we have another 25 years in us. And so just thank you, and please keep the feedback coming. And I'm excited for what we can do.
Fantastic. I do want to truly thank you for taking the time to be here. It doesn't just mean a lot to me, it means a lot to the community as a whole. We look forward to having future discussions with you and other members of the leadership team with eBay. And we want nothing but the best for eBay as a whole. I think it'd be great. So thank you so very much for being on with us today.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.